This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
If you're a seeker, don't miss the inspiring book Shamanic Awakening, Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Cochran's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers throughout the Americas. Sandy's initiations across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt, combined with her knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth, influence her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private readings, sacred international journeys, a meditative CD, and her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate your earth walk and create a deeper connection to yourself. Find this and more at her website, starwalkervisions.com.
Welcome to The Secret to Everything. I am Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and we are so happy you decided to spend this hour with us. I have, as usual, an amazing guest that I'm going to tease you with for a few minutes, and then we'll bring him on as soon as we possibly can. So this hour, we're going to be talking with Ron Melchiore, and he is someone a little bit different. In fact, he's so different, he chose to live off the grid since 1980. I bet he has some amazing stories. And he has written a book that is called Off Grid and Free, My Path to the Wilderness. And of course, that is available on Amazon as well as Barnes and Noble. And like I said, we will be getting into hopefully some really great stories and practical tips as well with Ron in just a little bit. But I wanted to talk to you really quick about the energy right now. To me, the two words that come to me when I think about the energy going on right now is a lack of motivation and a need for movement. People seem so overwhelmed by the current energy that they are literally kind of frozen in place. And so here we are already into the second month of the year, and we had all these great aspirations, and this year was going to be different, and you guys know how it goes. And here we kind of stand looking around, and some of us are in the same place we were last year, and we're kind of frozen. So have you lost your vision? Like I said, it's already February. We need to do something about this. What's this year looking like for you? If things are not going well, let's tweak that vision a little bit. It's okay to change what isn't working. The big topic this month in the heavens, let's say, is all the eclipsing going on. So we've got a lunar eclipse, we've got a solar eclipse. What does that mean for you? Well, the positive part of that we'll get to in a minute, but we're going to start with the negative. The negative side of that is this is going to ask you, this energy, to let go of your stuff, your old way of doing things, your old way of thinking about things, your old relationship with yourself. And you may be tempted to go a little kind of wild and be like, I'm going to go into resistance in this energy, and I'm going to go wild and crazy, and I'm going to pretend I'm 16. And you and I know that never ends well. So don't give in to any of those temptations to kind of go off and do wild, crazy kind of things. However, letting go is the theme, not that kind of letting go, but letting go of all the things that you do not desire and inviting in and making room again for the magical creation that this year can continue to be. So stepping into kind of a new you in the new year. Stop trying to go back. Stop trying to retrace what worked last year because this is a totally different energy. Stop running back to your old relationships, your old way of thinking, your old way of doing things. Become very crystal clear on what you value and desire this year and chart a plan of action. And when I say taking action, I don't just mean thinking about taking action. I mean, really move forward with some really practical ways of accomplishing what you desire. You're going to feel some resistance energy. And that's partly because we've got this huge thing you may have heard referred to as a cardinal cross. And that's just an icky, heavy energy. The good news is by the time you listen to this program, most of that energy is going to be gone. And there's going to be some really nice, crystalline, very, very clear energy coming in to kind of shake things up. So if you can ride through this lower energy that's been going on the first half of this month, things are really going to lighten up as we head into the last 2 weeks of this month. And this energy that's coming in, the new energy, the good and positive energy, is actually a very different energy, and we haven't had it on the planet for a long time. So it may not feel entirely comfortable to you. Do not go into resistance in this energy. Rather, remember, use it to chart a new course. Use it to step into those new places of you that need exploring. Are you ready to move on? If you're ready to move on, if you're ready to move forward, this is the energy that's going to support absolutely all of that. This is your chance to rewrite the script, not just of this year or this day or this moment, but really of your entire life this forward. So please take advantage of that. Basically, we're going into high-speed forward motion. Keep up, or you're going to get left behind in the most positive of ways. So stop getting pulled into all the chaos that's going around in the world that everyone else is experiencing. Stay out of this. It's very, very important. The drama that everyone else is involved in will try to suck you in. Do not allow it to. As always, this show is sponsored by thesecrettoeverything.com. We are currently offering a free chakra reading if you go to my website, and you can check that out. So after this commercial break, we're going to be back with Ron Melchiore, and we're going to be talking about living off of the grid right here on The Secret to Everything with Dr. Kimberly McGeorge.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere, Florida. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine such as hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining rooms can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you visit, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic downtown Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, old Florida cuisine at its best.
Thank you so much for listening to The Secret to Everything. I am Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and we are here to dig in with a wonderful and fascinating guest. And let me tell you just a little bit about him. So Ron has been an outdoorsman, a pioneer, a homesteader, a remote exploration camp manager, and of course, an author. He's been living off the grid since 1980. He and his wife, Johanna, have spent the better part of their lives unplugged. I like the sound of that. And as part of Back to the Land movement that originated in the 70s, they have spent their adult years living the homestead dream. I want to talk to him about this because I love what I'm going to say next. So Ron has also thru hiked all 2,100 miles of the Appalachian Trail in winter. Did you guys catch that? In winter. Bicycled from coast to coast, survived forest fires, encounters with bears, and much, much more. Like I said, his book is Off Grid and Free, My Path to the Wilderness, available at Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Welcome to The Secret to Everything, Ron.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Kim. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so impressed. And of course, I live very close to the Appalachian Trail, so I am very well aware what a thru hiker means. But for those that aren't familiar with that term, why are we distinguishing thru hiking from what other kind of hiking is there?
Well, there's day trips, and so thru hiking would be a really long, extended hike. I actually, for the 2,100 miles, it's almost 2,200 miles, and it took me 5.5 months of walking. And I started at Springer Mountain, Georgia, and worked my way. There's 14 states that I had to traverse, and I ended up in Maine at Mount Katahdin.
Wow. Now, did you do that with your wife or with other hikers, or by yourself? How did you take that journey?
Yeah, no, it was, we started together with Johanna and I, and she went a couple 100 miles and then ran into some physical problems with her knees. Her knees kind of gave out. So at that point, again, this is wintertime, so there's very little competition for shelters and very little in the way of traffic on the trail. So I ended up doing the rest of the trail, roughly 1,900 miles alone.
Wow, that is so impressive. And it's funny because at first you said winter and I thought that's horrific, but really you brought up a really great point. There is a lot of competition in some of the other seasons for, a lot of things really. And so I think that's kind of smart that you chose to do that in winter. Obviously you are very, very tough. So share with us kind of the beginning of your journey. You obviously haven't always lived off grid, like your whole entire life. What kind of was I guess the tipping point where you said, okay, I'm done and we're going to do something different?
Sure. That's a really great point. And the question is, I've grew up just in a traditional household, and I took during my schooling days, I took industrial electronics as my career choice. And after I graduated high school, I went into the work field and worked at several jobs in the electronics industry. And it wasn't too long, maybe 3-4 years, that I started to question, is this really all there is to life? There's got to be more to life than just working it away, making the business owner prosperous, and getting up in the morning, going to work, and then coming home and just repeating that routine. So at some point, I had a relatively young supervisor in the electronics industry at the one job, and I was lamenting the fact there had to be more to life than just working it away. And he suggested homesteading. And at that time, I'd never heard the term. I was absolutely clueless. But once I realized after some research what it meant, which was basically being self-reliant, self-sufficient, the little bell went off, and I never looked back. It was just one of those things in life where a simple suggestion changed the entire course of my life.
That's really amazing. So that was kind of something that you didn't even know that you were going to resonate with, but you really fell in love with and took to that as a permanent lifestyle. So where are you living right now? And I think you told me that you're in the process of moving, but let's say, where have you been living? Let's go with that question for the last however long.
Sure. Well, one thing I should point out is we're talking over VoIP, which is voice over internet, and we're actually bouncing a signal off a satellite. So there's going to be a little bit of a slight delay. But once I decided that I wanted to homestead and the decision was made, I immediately started looking for land, and I ended up in northern Maine. And I spent 20 years in northern Maine learning the ropes and gaining confidence in my abilities and stuff. And I heard the call of the wilderness. So right now, for the last 17 years, we've lived out in the Canadian wilderness on a remote lake. We're alone out here. There are no roads, no trails to get to us. Animals are the only neighbors that we have. And float plane is the only way to be able to reach us. Twice a year, we go out and we fly out for resupply. And that's the only time that we shop and fetch our mail, take care of appointments, and interact with other human beings. So basically twice a year we see people, only when we fly out for resupply.
All I have to say is you must both be pretty amazing people, because you guys are each other's, basically, like you said, sole source of companionship. So I think that would either really drive you close, or I guess it could probably drive you crazy and apart, as well. So both of you must be pretty fascinating people. Gosh, I have so much I want to ask you. So some people may not be familiar with the term off-grid. So they may at this point be thinking, oh, that's nice. There's no roads, but I'm sure he has electricity, and I'm sure he has all the, they're probably picturing kind of a luxury little cabin in the wilderness. Is that how it is?
Well, it is actually. It's a 2-story home. I'm sitting at the picture window right now. I'm overlooking a frozen white snow-covered lake. And we have all the amenities that a typical house would have. You'd never know that you're 100 miles out in the wilderness. Off-grid, we're well away from any power lines. We're also well away from any cell phone towers. So cell phone would never work out here. So when I say off-grid, we produce our own power. We've got solar panels on the roof. We've got a wind turbine that's turning right now out behind the house. And we take all that energy from the sun and the wind, and we turn it into power for our needs. So that's the off-grid life, and we've been doing that for 37 years. We've improved, of course, over time, and we've learned certain tricks and things to incorporate, but that's our life for the last 37 years when I say we've been disconnected and off-grid.
Wow. So who did you build your own house, or how did you build your house?
I did. When I went to Maine first, I researched. I had no idea of building. I never built anything before, but I did the homework. I hit the library and learned how the basics of construction. I built the house with the help of some friends occasionally, and my parents came up. So that's how the house in Maine was built. And then when we moved out here 17 years ago, everything, keep in mind, everything had to be flown in. The only way to find us is to hire a float plane. So everything, it was a logistical nightmare to have to assemble all the stuff at the float plane base, load the plane, fly it out here, offload it, haul it all up to the house site, and then build. So Johanna and I did most of the building. My brother came up for, I think 2 to 3 weeks, and with some muscle and some good help. And my parents came up for a little spell, and we did a lot of visiting, but they helped a little bit too. So that's how we built the house.
That sounds like a little at a time. Very challenging when you have to get all that material up there. So what kind of pets do you have? Do you guys have domesticated animals then for pets?
We don't here, but we did. We had a dog and cat in Maine. It just doesn't make sense to have animals and pets out here for a number of reasons. We've got to fly the food in. So if we had a dog, we'd have to fly dog food in. We would not experience the kind of wildlife that we've seen here if we had a dog outside that was constantly chasing off stuff. We've had some amazing wilderness and wildlife experiences. So, and then, we've got bear and things that may even prey on the dog or cat. So it's just easier not to have to worry about all that, those things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So are you a hunter? Do you actually go out and trap or hunt for your own food? And do you guys grow in greenhouses or in gardens? Do you grow your own food? Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm not a hunter or trapper. I'm not opposed to it. When we were in Maine, we grew all of our garden needs. We had a big garden and grew all our vegetable needs. When we were in Maine, we had a cow, we had pigs, we had chickens and turkey. So we did all the raising of livestock. We did our own butchering and slaughtering and processing of the meat. We cut the carcass up and cut and wrapped. We can do the smoking of bacon and hams and the curing. So we know all that stuff. We've done it in Maine. But being out here in the wilderness, again, it doesn't make sense to fly in animals and animal feed and have to worry about predators and stuff. So what we've done is we've got all this knowledge, and what we do is we fly in every couple years a side of beef and a whole frozen pig, and then we still do our own cutting and wrapping, process the hams and bacon, we cure them, smoke, make sausages, and we've got it down to the point that all the fat is rendered, and we even make most of our own soap.
Wow. It still sounds like a lot of work, but that's really smart. That makes sense that you guys do it like that. So do you also fly in your vegetables and fruits then instead of growing a lot? I know you said you did it in Maine, but where you are now, do you also fly in like your fresh foods?
No, we don't. Actually, very little is flown in as far as vegetables and fruit. We've got south-facing greenhouse on the house, so we can get a jump in early spring, long before the snow is off the ground. We've got our first salad fixings. We've got a big garden out behind the house that Johanna, that's her territory. She grows all kinds of stuff. We've got, even though we're 56 degrees north in latitude and in a very cold climate, we've got down to a science that we can even grow corn here. And then I'm kind of responsible for the orchard and there's an asparagus and berry patch. So that's my domain. So we do grow just about all of our vegetable and fruit needs.
Yeah, sounds like you've got that covered. We're going to be back and we're going to ask Ron about some wild animal encounters right here on The Secret to Everything with Dr. Kimberly McGeorge.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, soul balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world.
You are listening to The Secret to Everything with Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and I'm here with Ron Melchiore, and he is outdoorsman and a pioneer, and we are talking about homesteading both in the Maine and in the Canadian wilderness. And I did a little bit of a teaser. I have a sneaking suspicion, well, partly because I read one of the chapters of Ron's book, which I highly recommend, very entertaining. But I have a sneaking suspicion, Ron, that you have many interesting wildlife and animal encounters you could tell us about. So if you'd like to share maybe some of the more interesting, funny, dramatic ones, that'd be great.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I do. It's living out here has given us the opportunity to experience some of the most amazing wildlife. There's a number of things that come to mind. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is I'll just read the first couple lines from the book, the first chapter. "There was a bear at the door," shouted my wife, Johanna. She had gone downstairs to fetch a book and had heard a strange noise at the front door. Looking over, she was startled to see a pair of large paws groping at the door window pane, the claws making telltale click, click sounds on the glass. So that gives you some sense of, that's how I start the book. And we've had numerous bear encounters. So that's one bear encounter. I can tell you briefly that a few summers ago, Joanna, we were sound asleep. Joanna thought that she heard something behind the house, so she got up and looked out the window and whispered over to me that there's a bear outside. And she started to close the window, and it squeaked. The bear immediately ran around to the window and is clawing frantically at the window. It wants to get in the worst way. And there was she's face to face, I mean, literally 2 feet apart between the bear and her face, the window separating them, and she's yelling and banging. There's nothing that we can do to discourage that. So I shot out of bed and I added my voice to all the chorus of banging and shouting to try and get this thing to stop trying to get into the house. So I ultimately ended up getting dressed, and by the time I was able to get outside, it was just trash in our greenhouse. And so I managed to, we've got the shotgun, and fortunately I was able to scare it off, but before it really did a lot of damage. But that bear was in pure predator mode, and it wanted to get in the house in the worst way, and there was nothing that was going to discourage him. So that's one bear experience. I'll let the readers, anybody who wants to read the book, there was a time that I was actually physically touched by a bear, which is an interesting story in itself. And I guess the only other quick story is birds and I get along very well. And there's many experiences, wonderful experiences that I've had with birds. One that comes to mind real quick, I saw a flock of pine grosbeaks out here one year. I went out in a chair. I popped the chair out, put some feed in my hand, and not too long after, one brave grosbeak came to my hand, started feeding. The next thing I know, the rest of the flock is in my lap and at my feet. I mean, they're just going after all this bird feed. So just imagine being experiencing a place where you can just go outside, sit in a chair, and the birds are comfortable enough that and brave enough that they're feeding out of your hand. So it's just a wonderful opportunity.
It sounds like you're so connected with nature, and that's a similar experience to that many people report or write books about when they do any kind of hiking, really, but hiking the Appalachian Trail. And for some reason, I have this really weird, and I'm not sure it's that weird, addiction. I love reading about people going on long, excruciating hikes. There's just something really fascinating about, you think it would be really boring, but just the rhythm of it, it's almost like you kind of go along with them. So could you share any, stories or interesting people that you met or experiences that you had while you were hiking the Appalachian Trail?
Yeah, there's a number of interesting experiences I had and people I met. Now, again, because I was doing this in the wintertime, there was very little traffic, so it was maybe a little bit more noteworthy when I did come across people. And maybe it brought out some of the more odder, more unique individuals. But I remember in New York somewhere, I was hiking and I came across, I believe, 2 or 3 guys, and they stopped me and asked me where I was going and how far I was going. And I told them I was going to Maine, and this is in New York now. So one of them had no idea what trail they had stumbled on or where Maine was in actuality. So the one said, so what's that, about 3 days, or I forget what, I believe it was 3 days hiking. So what's that, about 3 days hike? And, still got maybe 2 months of hiking yet to get up to Maine. So it was obvious that they just weren't geography savvy. There was another person I came across who was lugging, I forget, a tremendous amount of weight. I forget, he was proud to claim he was carrying all this kind of weight. And he had the mileage that he was doing down to hundredths of a mile that he was doing. So can you imagine the long distance hiker keeping track of the hundredths of a mile, not just miles? So he was interesting too. So there were some characters, and that's what makes the experience, and that makes memories.
Yeah, really the people that you meet, and I think probably the realizations that you yourself, have about yourself as you interact with the trail, which I know can be a beast. And it's so funny. We actually went up to a place. I lived outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and we kind of sat for a while at Max Patch and, talked to the hikers as they came through there, which of course is a beautiful place. You can see for 4 or 5 states, and just so interesting watching. It's really a parade of humanity, people that you would never imagine would hike. Of course, this was in the summer, so a little more busy, but, a lot of young people, but a lot of older people and a lot of single people and a lot of married people. The other thing we really didn't see, and this is something I'm curious about, I have heard that children do hike sections of the trail, but I've never seen any pass through. Did you meet any children on the trail?
No, nothing comes to mind right off the top, but certainly, teenagers was not uncommon. So anything from teenage on up, but you're right, it is a study in humanity to, especially if you can sit there and just watch the people pour by, and it's a reflection of society, I think, as far as the range and the diversity of people that are out there on the trail.
And I have to tell you, it's refreshing that people still hike to me, because we're such a, technological age, and the kids are playing so much Xbox and they're all into their phones. And so it's so nice that hiking is actually still a thing. I think it's great. So do you and Johanna, and maybe, I'd love to talk to her sometime, but do you guys ever get lonely to sit around with another couple and play board games, or do you prefer being away from civilization? Do you miss it, or do you kind of really embrace it?
We embrace being out here alone, and it's not because we're antisocial. I mean, we're happy to talk to people. We're happy to peck out emails back and forth, and stay in touch with everybody. But we don't feel that need to be surrounded by people. We're comfortable being on our own. And we just have an overwhelming sense of peace when we're out here. It's kind of a unique life, but the gist of it is, no, we never get lonely out here. We're quite content to be out here on our own.
That's such an unusual word that you don't hear very often. You don't hear very often the word content, and instead of being content with more, in a lot of ways, you guys are content with you actually do have the more, but it appears materialistically you have the less, but really, you do have amazing connection, that a lot of us don't have any connection to, like nature and, like you said, the animals and different things like that. So what other dangers are there when you live out in the middle of the wilderness? Are there fires? Is there bad storms? Tell me about that.
Well, living out here requires us to be responsible for ourselves. And so there have been fires, there have been some medical issues that have come up. So we kind of have thought ahead. We've tried to prepare as best as possible for all possible outcomes and scenarios. So we have had numerous forest fires over the years, 2 that really came within 90 feet of burning the house down. One was 2002, one was 2010, and they were sights to behold. It's hard to explain. It's hard to fathom how brutal a forest fire can be. But there was one time in 2002, I was out here alone. Johanna had been evacuated, and 4 miles to the south at the end of the lake, one afternoon, all I could see was a wall of flames coming, and I heard the freight train. It sounds like a freight train coming, so I wrote some last words, stuffed it into the stove, got into the boat, and headed towards the forest fire. And for the next, I don't know what it was, that was probably 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I didn't get home till about 3 in the morning. So all that time I was either in the lake, in the boat, or on an island trying to survive this thing. And even islands burned that night. So between the 2 fires, just those 2 fires, about 750,000 acres burned around here. So there were sights to behold and quite the experience. As far as medical emergencies and things, we've been very fortunate that we haven't had any real emergencies. We've gotten some infections and things like that. But we have antibiotics, and we've got things that in our medicine chest that gives us the opportunity and a chance to at least survive it without having to resort to calling a plane in. Now, keep in mind, because we are accessible only by plane, the planes fly on visual flight rules. So if it's bad weather, we're on our own. If it's in the springtime when the lake is stalling, we're on our own. And the same with when the lake is freezing up in the wintertime, in the fall. So there's certain times of the year where we truly are on our own, and even help is going to be tough to get in here.
Oh my goodness. It just that image of that fire and no fire trucks and no firemen, and obviously using your head helped, seeking water. And like you said, even then you said islands burn and your house could have burned and you had no control. So really you were at the mercy. Talk about the mercy of the wilderness. You were absolutely at the mercy of the wilderness. So we're going to head to a commercial break in a couple minutes, but when we come back, we're going to continue talking to Ron. He is the author of Off Grid and Free, My Path to the Wilderness, available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And we're going to find out what motivated Ron to write this book when we come back right here on The Secret to Everything with Dr. Kimberly McGeorge.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? I'm Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and on The Secret to Everything, we will merge the practical with open investigation into all realms of the mysterious. We will talk to cutting-edge alternative health practitioners, those who inspire and motivate you in business and life, and of course, we will share stories of the paranormal, conspiracy, and cryptozoology. You will transform because of the frequency I carry, the frequencies my guests carry. Life may never be the same after you listen to this program, for the secret to everything is for you, the listener, for those who desire more in every area of their lives and believe that it can still be found. Listen and discover thesecrettoeverything.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back to The Secret to Everything with Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and we are wrapping up a very warm and wonderful conversation with Ron Melchiore, and he is an outdoorsman, pioneer, homesteader, remote exploration camp manager, and last but not least, the author of the book Off Grid and Free: My Path to the Wilderness. And speaking of your book, Ron, what motivated you? And it's so funny because part of me says, well, you have plenty of time to write a book, and part of me thinks you probably have no time to write a book. But what motivated you to write down some of your adventures in this book?
Yeah, sure. The motivation was, in all honesty, I've never thought of our life as anything really out of the ordinary. But when I relate the stories of a forest fire to somebody, or I tell them some of these animal stories, whether it's family, friends, complete strangers, invariably everybody suggests, why don't you write a book? You should write a book. And I heard that for year after year after year and kind of poo-pooed it. I mean, I didn't think anybody would really be interested in it. But I heard it enough times that I decided, okay, I'll start to jot down some stories, some things that I can remember. And before long, I had 18 chapters. And I was fortunate enough to find a publisher. and it's a 5-star rated book on Amazon. I'm just totally blown away that there's so many wonderful reviews that people have written for us. So it's obviously going over very well, and I'm just very grateful that people find our life story that interesting. So that's been really the motivation why I wrote it.
Well, and you're being a little modest because it's, there's books that are just books, and it's a well-written, entertaining, book. So I really encourage you guys to check it out. So let's say, what would your advice be to, let's call them a virgin homesteader, or someone who's like, oh yeah, that sounds like so much fun. What is the first step if someone is considering moving out of their, middle class suburban lifestyle and moving, whether it's to Maine, which is kind of a steppe wilderness, or to complete wilderness like where you are now? What would you recommend?
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly wouldn't recommend anybody moving to the wilderness right out of the gate. Take it slow. Talk to experienced people that have actually been off grid for a little while. Hit the books. There's lots of books out there. Gather as much information as you can so you can make an informed decision, and then take it slow. Start out. You don't need to move off grid. The ultimate goal is to be self-reliant, to be a little bit more self-sufficient, and you can start out with the garden and canning, and then over time, as you get experience and more confidence, just maybe add some solar panels, or you do some, you raise some of your own animals, and start with chickens. They're the small, easiest thing, and then work your way up. So that would be my advice for anybody who wants to go off grid. Start it slow, learn from books, and talk to people, and there's always people out there willing to help out and give counsel.
I think you brought up a really great point, which is we don't have to necessarily move out of our homes or, our middle-class neighborhoods. We can start by, and I'm really encouraging people to do this too. I love that you brought that up. It's such a great point that we can start by growing our own food. What a concept. Or, setting up a neighborhood co-op and coming together. And I really like the concept of going back to local, eating and eating what's fresh and what's available in your region that you live in. I really, really love that. A lot of places where I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and around here are very much into kind of the farm to table and the organic and the sustainable, locally grown movement. And I absolutely love that. And I find it very rewarding, not just to grow my own food, but I think it's also fun to play with it. And I'm an herbalist and a naturopathic doctor, so I grow my own medicine. And there is nothing more rewarding, both in you, and this, walking out and, holding a tomato in your hands or anything, green beans or whatever you're growing, and know that that's something that, you've invested the time and energy in, and you've worked with the soil to produce. But it's also really beautiful to grow and learn how to make your own medicines as well. And you can do that anywhere. You can do that downtown Chicago. You can do container gardening on a balcony. It's possible. So I really love that you said that. There's books and so much information available on the internet. I know that, I believe you're available on social media. Don't you have some social media, Ron, that you're available on that possibly people could interact with you or get a hold of you on that as well?
For sure. And I'm always happy to talk to people, but we're on Pinterest. I've got a Facebook page. I've got my own website now, and I'm actually doing blog posts, and I'm trying to write these blogs for the beginner. There's going to be a lot of information for experienced people as well, but I'm trying to take people, the beginning homesteader or someone that's considering doing it, and I'm trying to walk them through step by step. Here's what you want to look for in land. Here's some considerations, things that you want to do and search out. So I'm trying, the website is the way I'm trying to do that. And I've got a lot of, maybe a half dozen YouTube videos. So people are welcome to just search out my name, go for and look up YouTubes, and there's a couple of really interesting videos that will at least give them a better sense of our life out here.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look those up. That's really interesting. So what's next for Ron and Johanna? Where are you guys gonna live in the wilderness for the next 100 years, or what are your plans?
No, everything, all good things come to an end. And this April, we're actually going to be moving. We've got one last adventure in life before we hit the checkout counter, and that's to move to Nova Scotia, and we're going to create another off-grid homestead on the ocean or right handy to the ocean. It's always been the ocean has always been a source of fascination for us. So that's going to be the last big thing in our life, is to have a homestead on the ocean.
I think that's really neat that you guys are kind of mixing it up and twisting it, you know, a little bit and saying, okay, let's see how this works. And at the same time, sounds like, you know, possibly a dream of both of yours. So do you have any final thoughts for the audience? Does it take a certain type of person to be a homesteader? Can anyone do it? Is there certain character qualities we should be developing? Is it the sense of adventure? Is it patience? Is it knowing yourself? Kind of help us out. Is this for everybody, or is it just for some people?
No, this lifestyle is for everybody, as far as off-grid and homesteading and having the goal of being self-sufficient, self-reliant. That's for anybody. Anybody can do that. It takes a little bit more of a personality, perhaps, to live as remote as we do. Very few people would be happy out here. So as far as somebody in a city or a town, just as I mentioned earlier, start out slow. There's nothing personality-wise that would be needed or special to be self-reliant. It's just a matter of being open and having the willingness to learn. And if you're willing to suck up knowledge like a vacuum cleaner, you'll be just fine. The last few things I noted when you were first talking about the energy and stuff, and you were suggesting that perhaps it's ready for people to make a change or ready to move on. The last thing that's really important to me is the reason I wrote this book. I hope that my life story gives some confidence, provides a little bit of encouragement, maybe a little bit of inspiration for others to follow their dreams. Life is short. If you've got the opportunity, if you've got something in your life that you want to do, don't wait. Take the ball and run with it. Seize the opportunity. And that's really my message in the book, is I hope people will take that to heart.
That's so rich, and I love that. And I thank you so much, you and your dear wife, for modeling, you know, that sense of adventure and that pioneering spirit. And I know you guys have certainly both in many, many ways reaped the benefit of that. And thank you for writing that book and sharing that, you know, with people all over the world. So one more time, I've told them a couple times, but tell us how we can get your book and where we can find you on social media, and then the name of your website, if you would.
Sure. So, well, first, thank you so much. You've done a wonderful job of chatting with me, and I appreciate that. So thank you. My book is Off Grid and Free, My Path to the Wilderness. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's also in a audio version, so people can read it, print version, ebook, or audio. Social media, I'm on Pinterest, YouTube, Facebook, and I've got my own website, inthewilderness.net. All one word, inthewilderness.net. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody that has an interest in learning more about off-grid, homesteading, or really anything.
Absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much for your willingness to do that and for being on The Secret to Everything. And many blessings to you and your wife as you get ready for this next adventure in your lives.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kim.
All right, you guys, we will have many, many more fascinating guests. Be sure to check out Ron's book. Like he said, very available. And if you Google his name, he is very available to be found. Check out his YouTube videos as well. We will be talking to psychic Danielle Agnew on our next episode. And I am Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. This show is sponsored by thesecrettoeverything.com. And we will see you again on the next episode of The Secret to Everything.
Yeah.